Today we're going to talk about some basics of geometry, some things that you're going to see written and the way that you should write them, and just talk about the basics of how to go over that. So you need to make sure you're writing these definitions down and drawing the pictures. So make sure you are careful on space. I know it is cramped, but you can fit all of this in here. All right, first thing is congruent. The symbol you'll see normally written for congruent is a little squiggly line with an equal sign underneath it. And congruent means it is the same size and shape. So it is the same size and the same shape. There's no picture for that, but there's going to be one for congruent segments. So congruent segments are segments that are same size and shape. So the way you'll see those written, something like this. So if this is segment AB, it'll be congruent to segment CD, and they will be marked with these little tick marks that show that they are congruent. And the way you would write that is you would write AB, line segment AB, we draw the line over top of it to show that it's a line segment, is congruent to line segment CD. All right, congruent angles, very similarly. So you're going to have two angles. You don't have to draw these very big. They would be marked equal with what we call swoop marks or angle markings. That's what you have down here in the corners. And then to write that they are congruent, you would write angle LMN is congruent to angle OPQ. That little symbol in front is an angle sign. So hopefully these make sense. Pause the video and get all this written down. Ask questions if you have them. Midpoint. This is something you've probably heard of before, but the formal definition is that it splits into two equal parts. And I know I'm not being specific about what it splits because it can be used for many things. So if I have a line segment, I've got line segment AB. The midpoint would be here at C. And the way that we say that it's split it into two equal parts is we mark each side with a tick mark. We would say that C is, I'm actually write that in green. C is the midpoint of AB. And we can say that AC is congruent to BC. All right, segment bisector is something that splits a segment into two equal parts. Splits it into two equal parts. All right, so we have a segment, and then split it into two equal parts, and the parts are the same, so I'm going to mark them with tick marks. So then if we wanted to write that out, we would say AB is congruent to CB. Angle bisector is going to be something that splits an angle into two equal parts. So if we have an angle, the angle bisector would go right through the middle, making this side equal to this side. And we would mark it again with those little swoops. I know most of you have talked about parallel lines before, so you know that parallel lines have the same slope and they never intersect. So if we were writing that or drawing it out, we'd have a line here, line L, and line M. To show that they are parallel, we're going to draw arrows on them. Sometimes they'll be colored in like this. Sometimes they'll just look like arrowheads. So we would say that line L is parallel to line M. That's how you would write that out. All right, perpendicular. It's not like parallel. They do actually intersect. They intersect to form 90-degree angles or right angles. So if we have these two lines would be perpendicular, they would create a right angle, line K and line R. So we would say K is perpendicular to R. And those are lowercase letters. Perpendicular bisector is a line cutting a segment into two equal parts at 90-degree angles. So that would look something like this. So we've got a line segment, and it's going to cut it into two equal parts. So I'm going to say they're equal parts. We're marking them with the tick marks. And then I'm going to say it's a 90-degree angle by putting the little corner on it. That's the way we denote a 90-degree angle, is we put that little box in the corner to show that it's a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to make little notes here. So that means 90 degrees. And these mean equal parts. Hopefully this is making sense to you. I know some of this is a lot of new stuff. That's okay. We're going to keep practicing it. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. They form a corner. Complementary starts with C, corner starts with C, 90 degrees. Complementary angles form a corner. So complementary angles will look something like this. So you would have them maybe labeled where this one would say like this is 34 degrees and this is X, solve for X. And it'll be marked with the little right angle corner. So we know that it adds up to 90. So then we can say 90 minus 34 equals 56. So X is 56 degrees. All right, supplementary angles add up to 180. 180 degrees. So they form a straight line. Supplementary forms a straight line. All right. So we have a line and we have two angles put together. So X and 64 degrees. To solve for X, we know it adds up to 180 degrees. So we'll do 180 minus 64, and we'll get 116 degrees equals X. All right, linear pairs. Any amount of angles when put together make a line. And then, so just so you remind yourself, that should be a total of 180 degrees. So if we have a straight line, took 3 angles to add up to get that straight line. We have 72 degrees, 83 degrees, and X. So we can do 180 minus 72 minus 83 gives us 25 degrees. So X is 25 degrees. All right, vertical angles are congruent angles across from each other. And what that means, you'll normally see it written like this. So you'll see 2 lines that cross, and the vertical angles are these right here. So these 2 angles are congruent to each other, the 2 that I marked in pink. And then also, there's another set of vertical angles. I marked them each with 2 swoops in the burgundy color on top and bottom. So the left and right ones are congruent, and the top and bottom ones are congruent. Right angles, these are things you've seen before. It's a 90-degree angle. Like I said, it's always going to be marked with that little square in the corner to show that it's a 90-degree angle. Now, if it looks like it's a 90-degree angle, but it doesn't have that little box, then it's not a 90-degree angle. You cannot assume that it's a 90-degree angle. It has to have that little marker in there. A right triangle is a 90-degree angle inside a triangle. So if I have a triangle and I have a little box marking the corner, then that is a right triangle. The last of the definitions, the reflexive property of congruence, says that anything is congruent to itself. So what that'll look like, so say we have, and this is where we're going to use it a lot, is triangles. Say we have 2 triangles. We would be able to say that RT, which is this line right here, is congruent to RT. And I know you're going, why would you need to say that? Why would you need that? We'll talk about it later when we do proofs, and it'll make a lot more sense. But anything is congruent to itself. All right, transitive property, last one, of congruence says that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. And you will see that sometimes with angles or a few other things. So I'm going to draw a picture. So angle A is congruent to angle B because they both have the same little swoop marks. Is congruent to angle C because they all have that single swoop mark. They are all congruent to each other. All right, on these next few slides, it's going to ask us what can we tell or what can we say based on the markings on the drawing. So you want to look back over and see what you have and see what it tells you. So the first thing we see on number 1 is that we see that we have these little tick marks here on these line segments. And because they both have 2 tick marks, it means we can say that those line segments are congruent. And the way we write that is RS is congruent to UT. And you want to have the line segments over top of the letters RS and UT. All right, number 2, the only thing that you see marked, and this is not on your paper, this is just paying attention. If you want to draw them out, you can, but hopefully this is showing you just a few more ways to see what's going on. On number 2, if you want to draw these on the back, you can because it's blank. We see that we have an angle here, a right angle. So we can say that angle C is 90 degrees, or that it is a right angle. And because that forms a right angle, we can say that line CE is perpendicular to line CB. Because they form that right angle when they cross, they are perpendicular. All right, number 3, you see we have an angle here and an angle here that are marked congruent. So we can say that angle C is congruent to angle D because they are marked with the little swoop marks. All right, on number 4, we see that we have these arrows written here. So remember, those arrows mean that it's parallel. So we can say that line FE is parallel to line HG. All right, looking at number 5, we have 2 sets of things actually that we can say here. First thing we want to look at is that we have these 2 segments marked congruent. So we can say that US is congruent to RS. And then we can deal with this right angle right here. So we can say that angle RST is a right angle, which means it's 90 degrees. And we can also say, because we have that right angle there, that line UR is perpendicular to line ST. Now you may be asking yourself, how come I had to say angle RST with 3 letters instead of just saying angle S? And that's because you have to denote where it is if it's not just one specific angle. So with that one, you have to say the 3 letters that give you the angle, because sometimes the letters will show more than one angle. So like you could say angle R because it's right there at the corner. There's nothing else. There's no other angles created with it, but you can't say angle S because which angle is it? All right, looking at number 6, we have yet again 2 sets of things. So the first thing here is that these are marked parallel. So we can say S is parallel to T. And then we can look at this right angle right here at angle C. So we can say angle C is a right angle. I'm going to have to write up top. Angle C is a right angle. But because it is a right angle, it means they're perpendicular. So we can say that DC is perpendicular to line U. Because it only has 1 letter, you can only use 1 letter to show it. So line segment DC is perpendicular to line U. All right, number 7, we can look here at these lines, at the little tick marks that are showing on the line segments. So we can say that VW is congruent to XW. And then we can look at the swoops. So if we look at those, we want to label the angles. We do have to label it with 3 letters because if you say angle T, which one? There's like 5 of them that it could be. So we have to say angle VTW. You always want to follow it in order. So V to T to W is congruent to angle XTW. So you always want to make sure you're following in the same order. All right, number 8. We have 2 sets of tick marks. So we can say that GF is congruent to GE. And then we have these swoops that we can also mark. So we can say that angle CFE is congruent to angle DEF. Yet again, you have to use 3 letters because if you say angle E, there's 2 places where it could be, so you have to be very specific with it. These are a little bit different. It says, write if the statement given is indicated by the marks on the diagram. So line CD is parallel to line EF. So for them to be parallel, they have to be marked with the little triangles, and as you see, they are. So line CD right here is parallel to line EF right here. So yes, that is indicated by the marks. All right, VU is perpendicular to RU. So VU, which is right here, is perpendicular to RU, which doesn't even exist. RU would be here. So they are not perpendicular. No, there's nothing that indicates that, nothing that shows it. All right. Angle VWU. VWU would be that angle right there. Is congruent to VUW. There's no way because they're not even both drawn on there. So that's a no. All right. This next one says HG. HG is congruent to CD. So in order for that to be true, they'd have to have the same number of tick marks. This has 3. This has 3. So yes, this is true. Good. All right. Last two. Angle DCE. DCE, just drew it in blue, is congruent to HCG. I'm going to draw that one in green. HCG. So they would have to be marked with the same number of swoops, and they both have one swoop. So yes, this is true. Last one. UQ. There's not even a Q on the diagram. Is congruent to YP. Those letters aren't even on there, so that's an obvious no. All right, hopefully this made some sense to you. You do have some practice where I want you to make sure you are trying them first before asking if they are correct, and doing your best to make sure you are labeling everything with the tick marks and the arrows and the swoops, just like we have done in this video. Have a good day, guys.